Welcome to another explainer. Today, we are decoding something that literally frustrates almost every leader, manager, and, well, frankly, anyone who's ever bought a gym membership and mysteriously never used it. We're talking about the hidden psychological mechanisms that block both personal and organizational transformation. We're going to keep things super clean, structured, and highly focused today to help you see exactly what's holding you back. Okay, let's dive into this. Think about that sheer frustration we've all felt. You bring in these brilliant new strategies, right? Maybe you redesign the whole office, launch a fancy new software system, or personally commit to waking up at 5 a.m. But then nothing actually changes. Everyone goes right back to acting exactly as they did before. As Tony Schwartz points out here, the real roadblock isn't a lack of a good strategy. It's the unspoken beliefs shaping the culture that ultimately decide if those new behaviors are actually going to stick. And this brilliantly illustrates how organizations, and honestly us as individuals too, operate on two very different levels. There's this visible level, and that's where we spend most of our time and money, right? Changing strategies, rewriting processes, printing shiny new values on company posters. But right beneath all of that is the invisible level, the realm of underlying beliefs, tacit assumptions, and these completely unspoken collective fears. When a change program only touches the visible side, it usually results in surface-level agreement, but deep invisible resistance. So to understand why this invisible resistance is so unbelievably powerful, we need to look at this concept coined by Ziva Kunda back in 1990. It's called motivated reasoning. Now, you might think you're this purely rational being, just logically weighing the pros and cons. But in reality, when faced with change, fear and a need for control immediately kick in. We then use our rational thought to justify choices that are actually driven by that emotion and fear. We act like these brilliant lawyers defending our resistance, right? Constructing perfectly logical arguments for why we simply cannot do the thing we know we really should do. Our emotions are secretly guiding our rationality, not the other way around. Which brings us to a truly groundbreaking framework developed by Harvard researchers Robert Kegan and Lisa LaHaye. They call it the immunity to change. Now, I want you to completely reframe how you view resistance for a second. It's not a character flaw. It's not a failure of willpower. It's actually a highly functioning psychological immune system. Just like your body's immune system attacks physical threats, your psychological immune system produces behaviors to protect you from perceived emotional or mental threats. It's doing its job. It's just a misguided act of self-protection. Let's move to and see how this builds into 4 specific steps. Step 1 is your declared commitment. So what you say you want to change. Step 2 is your contrary behavior, what you actually end up doing instead. But steps 3 and 4, that is where the magic happens. Step 3 is your hidden competing commitment, this unconscious goal to protect yourself. And step 4 is the big assumption, the deep, completely unexamined belief that makes your self-protection feel absolutely necessary. And the kicker is, as long as you don't examine that big assumption, your system remains totally stuck. And here's how this scales up to completely destroy company initiatives. What starts as a single individual's unspoken fear, like the fear of making a mistake or the fear of speaking up in a meeting, that quickly metastasizes into unwritten rules. Don't question the boss, or, hey, we never talk about failures here. Over time, those unwritten rules solidify into an organizational culture. It literally becomes a dysfunctional collective mindset that nobody consciously chose, yet everyone reproduces it every single day through their silences and reactions. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the toll these mindsets take, because it isn't just mental, it is deeply physically real. Our nervous system actually cannot distinguish between a physical threat, like a predator chasing you, and a perceived threat to your self-worth at the office. Just look at the biological costs here. If your active limiting belief is, I cannot stop, stopping is wasting time, you are literally bathing your system in chronic cortisol that degrades your sleep and your immune function. Or if you believe if something goes wrong, I am the problem, you're living in a state of chronic hyper-vigilance. Your sympathetic nervous system is always switched on, which dramatically reduces your cognitive flexibility. In fact, these competing commitments just drain all 4 dimensions of our human energy. Physically, that inability to stop completely eliminates our capacity for biological recovery. Emotionally, those unspoken fears keep us locked in defensiveness. Mentally, motivated reasoning and confirmation bias just chew up huge amounts of our cognitive bandwidth simply because we're trying to defend our certainties. And spiritually, well, these limiting beliefs constantly fuel exhausting thoughts about our self-worth. So really, no dimension of who we are is immune to a stuck mindset. So how do we break this immunity? We need tools to destabilize our certainties. And Tony Schwartz identifies 4 incredibly powerful questions you can use. First, what am I not seeing? That's admitting your view is partial. Second, what else is true, which directly interrupts that pesky confirmation bias. Third, what is my responsibility? Shifting your locus of control inward. And finally, how is fear influencing my perspective? Giving honest answers to these questions is deeply transformative because they force you to hit pause and actually look at the invisible assumptions that are running your life. So the crucial point is this. The visible changes we make, the new strategies, the slick processes, the bold company statements, they're necessary for sure, but they are not sufficient. Lasting change, whether that's for you personally or for your entire organization, only begins when we have the courage to address what is not seen. Our implicit beliefs, our unspoken fears, and our competing commitments are what actually dictate the reality of what gets done. I want to leave you with this thought to ponder today. Think about a change you've been really struggling to make, a place where you constantly display contrary behavior despite your absolute best intentions. Ask yourself, what are you secretly trying to protect yourself from? What big assumption is secretly blocking your own transformation? Dig into that invisible layer, and you just might find the key to finally moving forward. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I'll catch you next time.